Hello, and welcome to Learning from Nature, the Biomimicry podcast with me, your host, Lily Ehrman. This is another fun episode that I got to record in person at the Desert Botanical Garden in Phoenix. It was wonderful to reconnect with Michelle Fehler, who I got to work with during my time at Arizona State University, and who I learned so much from during my master's degree. Biomimicry is most notably applied to fields like engineering, architecture, material science, or healthcare, to name a few. But did you know that there are ways of integrating biomimetic practice and perspective into visual design as well? Michelle is a biomimicry professional and a visual communication designer who is passionate about connecting nature strategies to design. Her goal is to enable designers to tap into this vast database of inspiration in order to find innovative and creative solutions. Her research focuses on defining a life-centered design thinking methodology that allows the infusion of biomimicry thinking into the traditional human-centered design process. She is looking at various tools and processes that make the biomimetic approach more accessible to designers. As a clinical professor at the design school at Arizona State University, she teaches various multidisciplinary design studios, lectures, and seminars to undergraduate and graduate students. In addition, she teaches a practicum course as part of the Master's Biomimicry program at ASU. She has presented her work at various conferences such as the World Usability Day, AIGA-Y Conference, AIGA Phoenix Design Week, Sustainable UX, Audubon Society, Liberty Wildlife, and Target headquarters. Her work has been published in the Cooper Hewitt Summer 2019 Design Journal, Biomimetics MDPI, Swiss Design Network, European Academy of Design, and the Design Journal. Join us for a fun conversation in the Sonoran Desert. So I'm really excited to be here with Michelle. And Michelle, if you'd introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here as well. My name is Michelle Fehler. I'm a clinical professor at Arizona State University at the Design School, teaching graduate courses to multidisciplinary design disciplines, and I'm also teaching in the Biomimicry Masters, the VDL, which is the final capstone class for the program.
Awesome. Yay! I'm really excited to have a conversation with you here in the Desert Botanic Gardens.
I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spring day. We're going to hear the birds all through this interview.
Hummingbirds, we just saw some hummingbirds.
Yeah, hummingbird flew by.
Yeah.
And lots of chirping. And maybe share about how you got interested in biomimicry and the space that you're in.
Well, my journey in biomimicry started maybe 15 years ago, actually exactly 17 years ago. I was a graphic designer at the time, and I went to a conference in San Diego at the Y Conference, which is the AIGA Design Conference. Super cute conference, by the way. And Janet Kubler was there, talking about biomimicry and how the butterfly wings, the structural color could, be a new way of adding color to objects. And at that moment, I had been looking for ways to do my work sustainably. I wanted to be more connected to nature, but I didn't really know how to go about it. And so hearing about biomimicry, I saw this Fibonacci spiral in my head, and the center of it was biomimicry, and I just wanted to get there. And I felt my whole life was a journey to get there. So living in Arizona is a little bit different. I'm originally from Switzerland, where I lived in the city and I walked to my work, and I came across this little creek. I went over this bridge, went through this park, watched the birds, and then got to work. In Arizona, it's very car-centric, so I get into my car, which is air-conditioned. I go to work, which is air-conditioned. I go to my home, which is air-conditioned. And so in order to have outdoor time, you have to really schedule it, actively schedule it. And so I think moving to Arizona made that desire to connect with nature so much stronger. And so then finding biomimicry, there was no question that that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know how, but I just was so drawn to it. So then Janine came to talk at ASU, which of course blew my mind, like everyone else. And then Prasad and Heidi were kind of running head on, like establishing a biomimicry-centered innovation space. And then later on with Dana, they established a biomimicry center. So luckily, I was in the right space at the right moment. And so I had integrated some biomimicry stuff into my classes because I was doing my first master's through the design school focusing on biomimicry. I had Janine's book, I had the internet, and I just made something up. And I came up with 10 steps for graphic designers to be nature designers or biomimic designers. I found it really hard to find out how graphic designers can actually apply strategies from nature at that point, but it was a good start. And students loved to go outside and be connected to nature with their work. And a lot of designers in my class, they kind of took patterns and colors that they loved into their work, which was, we would consider that biomimicry light, or not even biomimicry, but just bio-inspired, right?
Yeah,
but it was better than what it was before. And then the biomimicry masters started. And Heidi and I, actually Heidi's the one that got me in trouble, because she's like, hey, let's take this Life's Principles class in the Biomimicry Masters. And I'm like, sure, we'll do it together. And then Dana was like, yes, you guys can take this class, but you also have to take 501. So then we took 501 and the Life's Principles, and I just loved it. The program was designed so well and so much fun. And I wanted more. So I signed up for the certificate and did the classes. And then at some point I wanted to take more classes, and Dana was like, you have to be in the masters to do more classes at this point. So I did the masters, and then someone mentioned the B Pro to me, and I was like, no, hell no. I have a masters, I don't need to do any more. And then at some point, I think I was talking to Dimitri and Dana and some other people, and I was like, okay, I need to do the B Pro. And I'm so glad I did. It was a life-changing experience, super intense learning about myself, about how to be a good teacher, about to be a good team player, finding out what I want, and applying biomimicry to graphic design. So I had the second master's that focused also on biomimicry in graphic design and design in general. And in the meantime, I was teaching more and more classes that were interdisciplinary with architects, industrial designers, graphic designers, engineers, sustainability people. So it's been a ton of fun, and I just love teaching those multidisciplinary classes, focusing on how to dig into nature and how to find those lessons that we want to apply for problems.
And super interesting, because at least from my perspective, I hear fewer stories about biomimicry being applied to the actual design practice. So I'd love for you to provide your definition of what biomimicry is based on your experience and how you come to this field, and also design thinking.
Yeah, so biomimicry, I tell my students, is definitely to start with bio-inspiration, but it goes deeper in the way that we look at the strategy in nature to solve problems in the human realm that should follow the way nature functions and not just the way that nature looks. Sometimes the form, of course, can be the solution, but a lot of times, especially in graphic design, it's not about the form so much. It's more about the system and the strategy on how to approach the message or the signal in order to be more efficient with resources and energy. So that's the biomimicry side. Design thinking is an approach to problem solving that has specific steps assigned to it, where you first get the context, you describe what situation you're designing within, what the true problem is. You do that through interviews or through research. And then you come up with ideas that are supposed to solve those problems. You test them out in prototypes, and then you revise until you get to a solution, or until you run out of budgets or the time's up. And so combining biomimicry with design thinking is super efficient with getting to the solution of nature's strategies, because instead of just only interviewing the user or only interviewing the provider or only doing online research, we're also going into nature and asking questions of how nature would do it. So they align really well, those two.
So nature's at the table, so to speak.
Definitely. Nature is the one that we're really designing for, because humans are nature and we try to fit in. And so by looking at what nature would do in that situation, we're trying to adjust our actions to follow what nature would do.
Very cool. I feel like that's really needed right now in every discipline, but design spans so many things. I'd love to hear more about kind of how you're applying that right now in your teaching and education space.
Yeah, so it's been super fun, because I'm teaching with Darren Petrucci, who's a professor at the design school as well in architecture. And he's a convert when it comes to approaching nature in design. And so we have been teaching studios together with Heidi as well over the years together, a studio called the Travel Studio. And we have adapted it now that we start the studio with a complex, audacious, wicked problem. And in many ways, in teaching design students, we kind of give them a brief. where we say, this is your client, this is the challenge, this is the budget, go ahead. But in this studio, we decided that we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is give the students a topic. So for example, we gave them the topic of the health of coral reefs. We're not telling them what the problem is. We're not telling them what we want them to do. They're architects, industrial design students, and visual communications designers. And so then a half of the semester is all about digging into what the situation is, what's the problem, what could we do, and what would nature do. So we traveled to Hawaii to kind of explore the watershed, all the water that flows into the water, interviewed, native fish pond operators and experts who are busy, keeping the beaches clean, and nonprofits. We partnered with the Nature Conservancy. And so it's been really meaningful to have the students be given a wicked problem and trying to figure out what the problem is.
Yeah.
And then once we have the problem, we can then look to nature to solve it. And so that's kind of like a new curriculum that we're testing out. We've done it 3 times so far. One topic was the coral reef. One time it was focusing on heat in Arizona, which is now for the first time was declared as a natural disaster. And the third one was the water in Arizona, which we just finished in the spring. And now this last one is focusing on multi-generational living in Sun City and how we can design that to make it more conducive for people and for the surrounding environment.
I love that you have the students dig deeper into that challenge, because sometimes when you're handed a challenge or a problem statement, it's like, okay, I'm going to run with it. But when you have to find out so much information about something so specific, and maybe even like you have to love that challenge. You have to be really ingrained in that space in order to like fully have perspective and apply it and apply solutions in a wide range of ways. So I think that's extra powerful.
Yeah, and it's really fun to see that with time, the students become the experts.
Yeah.
Where the faculty comes in and we're like, well, what does that mean? And they explain it to us because they did so much research and they're digging into the nitty-gritty of everything. The students got to know all the different types of corals and just the chemical of the water that harms the corals, and they've become super experts in it. So it's really nice to see that that's working in that way.
And then so how do you and where do you look to nature for solutions? I'd love to dig deeper into some of these specific strategies, like feedback loops perhaps, or causal loops, and kind of relationships in nature and different strategies where we could understand these patterns in a deeper way and then apply what's worked in nature for millions of years to our own spaces.
Yes. So each topic is different, of course, so we travel to different locations every time, and that biome where the problem exists is what we're going to work with as our database. Now, feedback loop are really interesting and important to look at because, as you know, Donella Meadows said that there's really no unintended consequences, just bad systems planning. And so getting to know the ecosystem in which you're designing something and being aware of what the operating conditions are and the pressure points that organisms are dealing with, and then how do they sense those? How does the temperature impact behavior? How does the UV or how does the water impact the behavior of those organisms is really super important because it gives you a clue on if you were to intervene in a certain way, how would that respond to that same feedback loop? And so as part of that new curriculum that Darren and I are prototyping, we are also including the systems thinking approach, which is sometimes hinted at in design thinking, but it's not consciously embedded in it. And so we introduced the causal loop as a tool to explore the cause and effect of different solutions. So first the students map out what is the problem currently and what is perpetuating that problem and who are the players and what are the factors that come out of that. And then they take that same loop and they try it out with an intervention where they say, what if we were to tweak this node and how has that an effect on the system? So that's been really insightful to explore, just to test if design ideas would actually work and what kind of effect they would have.
That's awesome because I feel like so many times humans come in with this big grand solution that we think is going to fix everything. Yeah. But there's all these other little feedback loops and relationships, and it's all a big system that we're a part of. So how do we perhaps just come in at one point? It's more efficient, it's more elegant, perhaps it's less wasteful, whatever that may be. I love that that's an emphasis.
Yes.
Especially in the design realm where it's like, the human creativity, the human genius likes to overpower. And sometimes it's like, how do we tap into what nature knows best?
Exactly. And so for the coral reef, we had to laugh because we had 6 teams and only 2 focused on the water. The other 4 solutions clearly came out to be more important to focus on what's happening on land before the water even gets into the water. And we would have not discovered that had we not explored all the connections. By doing the causal loop and the systems map, you can ask yourself, who else is affected that we're normally missing? Or who else could we bring in to be a partner to help us, elevate the solution? And so the systems map and the causal loops are really great tools to explore those other factors that sometimes get forgotten.
I'd love to explore the Desert Botanical Garden and see if we can find some examples of this.
Yeah, let's go do it.
Are you excited about the potential of biomimicry and want to begin your own journey in this field? Take the short course set from Learn Biomimicry and kickstart a nature-inspired future. Use my code LEARNINGFROMNATURE, that's all one word with no spaces, to save $60 when you purchase the Biomimicry short course set. Just head over to learnbiomimicry.com/learningfromnature. Okay, Michelle, tell us about this cooperative relationship.
Yeah, so as we know, there is this idea that nature is always in competition. But from what we've learned in the most recent years is that nature is actually more often cooperative rather than competitive. And so in harsh environments like the Sonoran Desert, where there's very little resources, in fact, the soil of the Sonoran Desert is only a 1/4 inch thick, and all the life happens in that 1/4 inch, you have to be very efficient with your energy, resources, and leverage each other. And so this is an example of a nurse-plant relationship between a cholla teddy bear cactus and a creosote bush. And oftentimes the palo verdes, the mesquites, and saguaro cacti, they have this relationship. Now, the cactus benefits from being protected while it's young and tender. The creosote or the palo verde protects it from the UV, it protects it from wind, and it protects it from birds that would otherwise eat it. And then in turn, as birds land on the cactus and start eating the fruits or doing the pollination, the droppings of the bird benefit the tree or the creosote bush. So being in cooperative relationships in harsh environments really helps to be resilient. And so Dana and Toby have come up with 4 really deep patterns of a working cooperative relationship that are super important to keep in mind when you do look for those relationships. But this is an example of one of them that is very common in the Sonoran Desert.
We've talked about design thinking, some examples of causal relationships and feedback loops in the natural world. How do you apply those learnings to your space in graphic design?
Yeah, so in graphic design, of course, we have the physical pieces. Of course, you can make a brochure smaller size to save resources, or you can work with water-based colors to not have toxins be part of the process, or you can emphasize recycling. But that's just the physical manifestation of graphic design, which has very small opportunities for efficiency and sustainability. To me, it's much more interesting for graphic designers to look at what signal are they sending out. Is that signal received by the audience at the right time with the right message? Is that message value creating, or is the value decreased because maybe you were very focused on one specific audience and now you're alienating another whole community? Who else can you partner with? Is there already a message out there that you could actually piggyback on? And can you give that sender something else in return? So looking at the whole system of a message, graphic designers oftentimes help marketing directors to craft promotions and products and sales and services, and just looking at the whole system of what is involved rather than focusing on the actual physicality of a piece brings much greater benefits for regenerative design. So really looking at those feedback loops and the causal loops to see who else is part of that system, and asking yourself, can you increase value for someone that might not be related? For example, if you have, one of my students right now is working on a project that looked at Red Bull. Red Bull has these events where you can, Red Bull gives you wings, so you can fly with this like self-made box and go into the lake, and the one that gets furthest wins. But could you partner with another company or nonprofit that actually promotes reusable containers instead of the aluminum containers? Or could you partner with sports nonprofits, organizations that donate money if people go and pick up trash? And then there's all these different intricate relationships that we could tap into to really increase the message and make it more resilient that way.
I love that. We need a lot more of that.
Yes. Every dollar we spend and every resource we use should be multifunctional and should do more than just one thing.
Yeah.
So that's the goal of graphic design and biomimicry.
Nature does multifunctional design really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's so much we can learn there.
Yes.
And so how do you connect to nature when you need inspiration? And, what do you love about spending time outside? And how do you include that in your own design work?
Yeah. Well, don't underestimate the value of reconnecting just on your personal level. I have an assignment as part of my classes where the students every week they go outside and do a nature journal entry. It's not very specified. I give them a topic and then they go outside and they do it. And I see that in their responses and reflections that they feel less stressed and they feel more inspired and more creative. So just even 10 minutes outside does wonders. Whenever I have bigger decisions to make, I have a path that I go on a hike and I spend some time on there and just air out my head and just be in a different environment, step away from the computer and just observe and lose your mind a little bit, just to observe and just be curious. That is the best way to actually benefit from spending time in nature. And then also you're building your tool belt of observations or questions that you come across in order to then answer those and integrate those into your work.
Yeah. And like we say in the biomimicry space, you have to quiet your cleverness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as long as we're sitting in front of the computer, we're in our cleverness, we're in other people's cleverness because we're doing research online with stuff that some other people wrote.
Yeah.
But really letting nature to speak to us, you have to go outside.
Yeah.
Normally I encourage everyone, if I give speeches or something, I end with making going outside part of your job description. Mm-hmm. It's part of your every Tuesdays and Thursdays, you have 11 till noon that you go outside and spend outside.
I love that. Yeah. And especially in the design space, but really every sector now, we spend so much of our day in front of a screen.
Indoors.
And it really limits that creativity and productivity to some level. So yeah,
and
being
our
outside,
energy and our oxygen and everything. So,
yeah. Being outside has magical powers.
Totally, absolutely, yes.
Okay, and then so if folks want to get more interested in graphic design and biomimicry, what kind of resources or suggestions or advice do you have for folks that are just starting out and kind of wanting to go down that path?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's different ways that you can go. On my website, which I can give you a link to, there's some resources for books and for courses and for podcasts. On my website, I also have 2 tools that I've developed. One of them is a Life's Principles-based evaluation tool. So if you have an idea of a design, specifically in graphic design, it asks you these 30 questions, and then you get a score at the end. And at the end, it will tell you if it's life-friendly or not, and it will give you some prompts on how to improve upon those. I also have a set of Life's Principles brainstorm cards that talk about strategies in nature of how you could approach your communication strategy as a designer or as a marketing director to be more efficient with your messaging. So those 2 products are on my website. And then there's a resource page on my website as well. And then, of course, we have the certificate and the masters at ASU. There's also a really wonderful Learn Biomimicry course online by South Africa. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. And then, don't forget Ask Nature, super wonderful database of information that you can dream and go down the rabbit hole in as long as you like. So
yeah, I tell people if they don't want to get any work done, they should go.
Yes, exactly.
They should go and Ask Nature.
I appreciate you all for listening in today and for being a part of this beautiful web of change makers across the globe. I'm excited to continue to share my own journey and invite guests that inspire us and give us a greater sense of curiosity for our genius world. This episode was brought to you by Learn Biomimicry. If you're wanting to start your own biomimicry journey, they have a special offer for my listeners. I've known about Learn Biomimicry for ages and actually was a mentor for one of their programs briefly a few years ago.
I've seen firsthand the impact it can have on folks. This is your chance to better understand biomimicry in just 3 short courses, all with the depth of a degree and the ease of a TED Talk. Today, Learn Biomimicry has helped more than 1,679 learners from over 41 countries practice biomimicry in their personal and professional lives. They've brought biomimicry to every continent, with the exception of Antarctica, although that could change, you never know. All my listeners save $60 when you purchase the Biomimicry short course set. There's also a free ebook to get you started. Use the coupon code LearningFromNature with no spaces, or head to www.learnbiomimicry.com/learningfromnature. That's all one word, www.learnbiomimicry.com/learningfromnature. Happy learning!